Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
Anxious for the show, man. We got some great topics.
We do. We got a lot to talk about today. A lot of Gilbert Arenas, too. Gilbert Arenas is making another appearance here.
He's always fun to talk about.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in with our first topic of today's show. And this one's going to be quite interesting because of some recent comments made by you on last show, actually. So leading up to the NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving is making his postseason return to TD Gardens on Thursday when the Mavs play the Boston Celtics in Game 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals. Kyrie spoke with the media on Monday and reflected on his time in Boston. So take a listen.
Last time in Boston, I don't think that was the best, not this regular season, but when we played in the playoffs and everyone saw me flip off the birds and kind of lose my shit a little bit. That wasn't a great reflection of who I am and how I like to compete on a high level. I'm built for these moments to be able to handle circumstances like that. And I've been able to grow since then. So, of course, it's going to be a hectic environment, but I'm looking forward to it. And I see it as a healthy relationship to have with the fans. I've been able to grow since then and acknowledge that, I just can handle things better, especially when I want to put majority of my energy towards playing well. I can't just be getting into it with fans like that, even though it may be fun at times, but it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of my time. And it's also a waste of my talent trying to answer questions from the past that people have. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the challenge on the court against the Boston Celtics and being able to lead my guys.
So I want to know, what is your reaction to Kyrie's comments?
You should be worried about going into Boston based on the history. He's 0-10 against them since he left. That bodes well for the Celtics, I think. He said, it wasn't a great reflection on my end towards the next generation on what it means to control your emotions in that type of environment. Well, he was getting beaten. They were being swept. And that's what being swept by the Celtics in the playoffs last year. And he flipped the bird to the fans a couple of times, and then he stomped on the logo, on the Celtics logo at midcourt. So I agree. That wasn't a great reflection on his end towards the next generation on what it means to control your emotions in that type of environment, because he lost it. And the reason he lost it is because he played crap and the team played lousy and they got swept. So tough luck, you know. You got to swallow your pride and admit you were the lesser team in that series, and you rightfully got beat. He says no matter what people are yelling at you, it doesn't really good behavior. He's had good behavior since joining the Mavs, but it doesn't really matter to him what people are yelling at you. You just got to go out and play. I think the Boston fans will try to get into his head big time. Says he welcomes the jeers, built for that, for these types of moments. I don't think so. He lost his cool when he played against them in the playoffs last time, and he hasn't been able to win a game against them. So he bailed on them after 2 seasons, and I think the Celtics fans have every right to get on his case. He said he was going to sign a long-term extension before the 2018 season, and he bailed. So I'd like to hear what you have to say, and then I've got a few more things I want to add.
I do think it's unfair to keep criticizing him for what he did with the Celtics when we're so many years after the fact, and I think that's what you're strung up on a little bit, because yes, while he did do those types of actions back when he was with the Celtics and when he promised that he intended to re-sign with the team and then things fell through, mainly on his part. He even admitted that in that press conference, as well as him stomping on the logo and flipping the bird off to the fans when he was with the Nets and then getting swept. That was true. Even last year, it was the year prior. Was last year he got suspended for was it retweeting or posting a link to the anti-Semitic was a book or a movie or something like that. No, he has definitely done some questionable things that, yes, albeit are not great. However, what about this year? Everything in my sort of perception, whether it be wins, whether you're an NFL coach, whether it's your last game performance, everything is about what have you done lately. And I think what Kyrie has done is we haven't heard a single word negatively about Kyrie Irving this entire season. And he's actually played incredible. 25 points a game. He's shooting 41% from 3. He's keeping it on the court because the Mavericks are letting him do whatever he wants to do within the realm of maybe legality or just smart things off the court. As long as he's not doing anything illegal or conduct detrimental to the team, they're letting him do whatever he wants to do, and he seems to be appreciating that because he's played the most amount of games for one particular team since all the way up back in 2018-2019 for the Boston Celtics. He's played 58 games so far. If you want to combine last year with the Brooklyn and Dallas, he played 60 games, but on one singular team. This is the longest period of time he's played, which was, if you want to even include last season, 78 games he's played for the Dallas Mavericks, and he's playing very well. He averages 26 points. He's shooting the best from three he has in his entire career. He is playing extremely well. He's even demoted himself from being the true point guard to now being a shooting guard for Luka Doncic to really give him the spotlight. So I think it's a little bit unfair just to keep criticizing him and honing down on his mistakes when we have to realize that it's been a very, very long time since those actions. It has been. And yes, he did get swept by the Boston Celtics. Yes, he did intend on re-signing with the Celtics all the way back in 2018-19. But things happen. Personal things happen. So I think we got to acknowledge the fact that since then, he's matured, he's grown up, he's been humbled, not only by the situations around him, by the NBA too, and even internally with some of his own teams. The Nets let him go. The Celtics, he gave up on the Celtics, and now the Mavericks are embracing him. So I think and also I'm pretty sure he signed his dad today to a shoe deal. So he's even I think he's maturing in that way. I think he's grown in that way. So in my opinion, to keep honing down on his previous mistakes and not really acknowledging that he has done a lot of good, and in this entire season, he hasn't had a scandal. He hasn't had anything bad happen off the court. He's kept it on the court, played very well, and lo and behold, we even said on this show that we didn't think, a lot of people, basically everybody said, Kyrie and Luka wouldn't work very well. Well, they're 7th in scoring. They're in the NBA Finals, first time since 2010, 2011. That's what happens when, Kyrie's happy. He's keeping everything on the court, playing well, and then lo and behold, there's a bunch of success.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back to 2018.
Sure.
Just for
I don't know why, but okay.
Yeah. That's when he began his exit plan. Halfway through the season, to team up with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. He quit on the Celtics in the postseason, shot them out of the second round against the Bucks, and actually, I think overall it's probably the best thing that ever happened to the Celtics because that led to the Tatum-Brown combo. And I think it's interesting, they have their opportunity to win their first NBA championship against him. So I'm rooting for the Celtics here, and I think it's going to be a tough series for Kyrie Irving.
Shot out of the playoffs?
He shot him out of the playoffs. He was terrible. I was watching the games.
He was terrible.
He was not focused on his play. He took terrible shots. He missed many shots. He turned the ball over. He played crap. It was terrible.
Who averaged the most points per game in the playoffs for the Celtics that year, 2018-19? Who averaged the most points per game?
He may have.
Kyrie Irving. By how much would you say? By 6.
By 6 points.
6 points.
Well, in the second round, he was terrible.
Who averaged the most assists per game in the playoffs that year for the Celtics? Kyrie Irving.
Uh-huh.
Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you're right. They were not the duo
they were just getting
today.
Started.
Correct. Yeah. They were just getting started. But the fact that you're saying Kyrie shot him out, he was the only reason why they even stayed alive as long as they did, which was they guess what? We have to realize, yes, Kyrie Irving did not play well against the Milwaukee Bucks, who went up and played very, very well. Beat him in 5 games. But you have to realize the series prior, they swept the Pacers. So it's not like they first round and it was like the Kyrie Nets play where they just get swept in the first round. No, they swept the team and then went up against a Milwaukee Bucks team that was on a mission that year, and they did lose in 6 to the next round against the Toronto Raptors, who won the finals. So I'm sorry, I can't agree with you there. There's nothing I could say where Kyrie was a massive detriment to the team. He was number 2 in steals per game in the playoffs, number 1 in assists. Yes, he may have averaged the most turnovers per game in the playoffs. However, though, you have to acknowledge that just because he's Kyrie Irving, he is who he is. When it comes to the playoffs usage percentage, he was also number 1. You want Brad Wanamaker, who was number 2, to lead your way? I don't think so. I can't even pronounce the next dude's name. Guarshawn Yabusele. He was number 3 in usage rate. Marcus Smart was number 4. Jason Tatum was 5. Jaylen Brown didn't even. Oh, he was number 8 behind Terry Rozier and Al Horford. This Celtics team was not a very good team. It was super young. They did finish 4th in the Eastern Conference. However, they were not the team we saw now. They went further without Kyrie the following year. They lost in 6 to Miami. So I can't say, oh yeah, it was all Kyrie.
Okay, well, the Celtics fans feel that way, and they're going to give him.
They feel the way because he said that he wanted to sign with him and he didn't.
They're going to be merciless on him, and rightfully so.
And he said he accepts that because it's just what the fans do. They respect good basketball, which they do.
The Mavs, what was the series, Celtics-Mavs this year?
2-0 Celtics. Correct. Luka averaged, I think, 35, 12, and 11, if I'm not mistaken. So,
he'll get his points. He'll get his points in this series. The Celtics need to just shut down everyone else, and I think they have the defense that can do it.
35, 15, and 12. Excuse me. 35, 15, and 12. Even higher than I said. The one thing that I guess you have if you're a Celtics fan and you don't like what Kyrie said is Kyrie has not played well against you recently. The numbers are what the numbers are, and we can bring them up very, very
0 for
briefly.
10.
He's 0 for 10. He hasn't played very well. These are the numbers. 0 for 10, 20 points a game, about 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He's only shooting 42%, sub 30 from 3. His net plus minus on and off is minus 49. So, yes, Kyrie has not played very well. Has the pressure gotten to him? Maybe. Or is the fact that the Nets were just a complete, crap show out there, which they were. There was one year where they could have made the NBA Finals if KD didn't have his toe on the line and would have beat the Bucks that year. But I think still, though, I think Kyrie has matured so far. Now, this could all just go to the wayside if he screws up again, but I think so far what we've seen this year was he's learned from his mistakes, he's matured as a player and just as a person in general. The Mavericks are letting him do what he wants to do. He's happy. He's playing well. They're technically, if you want to get to the actualities of it, they're the second best team in the NBA. Mm-hmm. If they win, they're the number 1 team in the NBA.
What's his contract? What's his contract status?
What, Kyrie Irving? Let's see if I can bring it up briefly because I do not have it up. Kyrie Irving is staying there until 2025, 2026. He has a player option for $43 million. So I guess that's next year, at the end of this year.
At the end of
this following
next season.
Correct.
Yeah.
He signed a 3-year, $120 million contract.
Uh-huh.
He's an unrestricted free agent. If he accepts the player option, which he'll be 33 years old. He might turn it down for more money. Who knows? But he's a free agent.
What's his last year's salary?
It's a player option for $43.9 million. So round up to $44 million.
It's not too bad.
Not bad at all. So I think I believe, maybe I'm just naive about it. I believe Kyrie's mature. So I think it will be a great series nonetheless. We're going to talk about our winners later on. But I do think that because we haven't heard anything, because there's been nothing really terrible off the court that is involving Kyrie, I think it's definitely more of a positive than a negative. So,
what do you think Doncic thinks about Kyrie Irving?
I think he loves the fact that the 7th best scoring offense in the NBA, and some people are considering him and Luka or him and Kyrie the best backcourt in NBA history.
Really?
Yeah. I think he loves that. I think the fact that they're in the NBA Finals because Luka and Kyrie both are matching point for point, dropping 66 points and combining for 72. I think he likes having him as the number 2 teammate, him as a shooting guard. I don't think he has a problem with it. I think LeBron, when Kyrie decided to leave Cleveland, I think LeBron had a slight problem with it. But lo and behold, LeBron reportedly wanted him to join the Lakers last year, so there's no real animosity there either.
Yeah.
I think if Kyrie Irving, and let's say he won't do this, he's definitely not going to. Let's say he said, I made a mistake and I want to team up with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown again. Would the Celtics make him an offer? Sure.
You think so? I doubt it.
Why wouldn't you want one of the arguably the best ball handler in NBA history on your team?
The best ball handler in NBA history?
The guy with the best handles in NBA history. You could argue him, AI, definitely up there. You could say one or the other. I would probably give it to AI, but Kyrie is definitely top 3. If Kyrie said he wants to, I would
doubt the Celtics would take him.
I'm just saying, if you doubt they would.
I do. I doubt it. They don't need him.
If he was asking for a fair price, let's see, he has a $43.4 million contract.
I don't think so. He'll be what, 30?
He'll be 33 next year.
Yeah, next year. So
Actually, no.
They don't really
No,
need him.
It'll be 33 next year.
They
He's
wouldn't be
32
able
right
to afford him anyway. They're going to have to give
I'm saying,
Tatum,
if they
Jason
didn't get Drew
Tatum.
Holiday the extension and they were looking for a point guard and Kyrie was available, would they go for him? Probably. I think a lot of teams would go for Kyrie.
I don't think the Celtics would.
Maybe, maybe not. But let's get into our next topic. So this is interesting. So on Friday, Gilbert Arenas made the claim on his show Gil's Arena that Stephen Curry was not a generational talent, and here is the full quote. Excuse me, let's go. Steph is not a generational talent. Wemby is a generational person. Generational means you can't mimic it. Can you mimic Magic Johnson, a 6'9" point guard with the vision? No, you can't mimic Shaquille O'Neal's body. You can't mimic LeBron James. You can't mimic Wemby. Those are generational. They come around once every few decades. So I want to know, do you think Steph Curry is a generational talent? And also, what's your reaction to Gilbert Arenas' comments?
This is another Gilbert Arenas comment that he put out there, hoping everybody like us would be very critical of it and talk about it so it gives him some publicity. That's how I view it. I think it's a crazy comment. Steph Curry is a generational player. He changed the game of basketball in terms of the three. He made the three a different weapon and a different style of play that favored the three over, a slam dunk. People got more excited about seeing him hit a three from way behind the arc than watching any other big player take a massive dunk. And so I think that that Steph is definitely a generational player, and because he was able to change the game of basketball, and to me that's generational. The other thing I'd say, it's not about physicality. I mean, he talked about only a player with once-in-a-lifetime physical traits can be considered a generational talent. He mentioned some of those players. Wemby, Shaq, LeBron are generational talents. Magic, it only happens once every 20 years or so. There's a lot of people that have had physical talent or physical gifts, and they weren't able to do anything generational. Look at Tom Brady as an example, right? He definitely doesn't have the physical traits of a generational player. He's the best player that ever played football, in professional football. He did it with his head, with his mind, his arm. It wasn't all about his physical traits. He's considered the best player ever to play the game. It wasn't about his physical traits.
Right.
So I think it's crazy. I don't agree with Gilbert at all on this.
Well, I think this is where maybe Gilbert Arenas' mind gets lost in its own translation. Last time I checked, becoming 6'9" or 7'3" is not a talent. Can you grow? If I work out, can I grow 7 inches? I don't think so. So maybe it's because he even described it as a freak of nature. That's what he said, that one has to be a freak of nature to be viewed as a generational talent. Take talent out, because talent is skill. Talent is something you work on. Sometimes talent is something you're born with and discover it. But for sure, talent is not growing 7 inches. In that case, Yao Ming should lead everybody. Manute Bol should be above everybody because they were 7'6" and 7'7". But no, that's not talent. You have to actually perform very well. You're 100% right. Stephen Curry changed the game of basketball. You have kids in 6th grade shooting three-pointers. When I was in camps at 6th grade, I was doing layup lines, not shooting threes. Hell, I wasn't even supposed to be shooting jump shots. I was doing left-hand dribble, right-hand dribble, crossover, and layups. That's all I learned at 6th grade. I played AAU for a couple years. That's also all we did. Now you got guys in 5th and 6th grade, and their coach to teach them how to shoot threes, how to play well. That's because of Steph Curry. Caitlin Clark, WNBA player and college superstar, has a little bit of Steph Curry to her. Very, very popular. The most popular WNBA player and female college athlete, arguably, currently. Probably definitely in WNBA and college, women's college basketball at the time. But Steph Curry revolutionized not just the NBA, but basketball as a sport. What also is fascinating is that because he used the term talent when talking about, like you said, Magic's 6'9" point guard, Stephen Curry's about 6'2", 185. He called that average talent. Average talent for Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair in any realm of possibility. And also, he brings up 6'9" point guard with the vision. LeBron James could play any position, same as Magic. LeBron James has more assists than Magic Johnson. And I think if we're talking about pure point guard, you could put Stockton on the list of who's better. Now, Magic probably has the better overall career due to the fact scoring, rebounds, assists, all of that. But if we're talking about true point guard who could pass the ball to the open guy, get the assist, I think John Stockton has 3,000 more assists than anyone else in NBA history. I'm not saying Stockton's better. All I'm saying is that if we want to replicate stuff. Also, he didn't put Michael Jordan on this list. He didn't put, he said Giannis is tweaking, so I guess he's close. Jokic is not on the list. Larry Bird's not on the list, even though when the NBA three-point line got introduced, Larry Bird, he won Rookie of the Year because he was shooting 40% from three his rookie year. So this is, again, this is definitely, it's close. I mean, is this worse than his Jokic take? I think
right
it's
up there.
Very, very
I think
close.
It's very close. It's in the similar vein for sure. He says Curry's game can be mimicked by one or more of the following generations. Oh yeah, you think anybody in the following generation is going to beat Steph Curry's number
Trae Young can't shoot
of threes?
Right.
We saw him set the record for threes.
Correct. We were at the game.
We were at that game, and I don't think that record's going to be broken anytime soon because Steph Curry is still playing, and he's going to play for many more years.
A season? Who's making? Even in Davidson, he was averaging 25 points a game. He was fourth in three-point percentage in the entirety of college basketball.
Don't you think anybody who's really a generational talent would how many of them would have the moniker "baby-faced assassin"?
None of them.
None of them.
None of them.
That's a generational talent. Baby-faced assassin.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to come up with something like that unless you're a generational talent, and he is.
So Arenas believes there's only 5 or 6 generational talents in history. He already said Victor Wembanyama, Magic Johnson, Shaq, LeBron James.
He didn't put Bill Russell in there.
He didn't put Bill Russell.
He didn't put Will Chamberlain in there. Jerry West.
Larry Bird, Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant, yeah.
Well, and that, honestly, if we're using his definition, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, because Kobe was probably the closest thing to Michael Jordan. Kobe mimicked his game after Jordan very, very closely. So when you talk about mimicking, and also, I think if you were to look up to a player, a lot of these players, they say they look up and they model their game after X player. So if that's the case, then do we have to knock out? Let's say someone models their game after Magic Johnson. Do we have to knock Magic off based on the definition because you can't mimic it? They're trying to. Seriously, who is shooting at the volume and the efficiency Steph Curry's shooting at from three? Nobody. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
It's really unheard of. So this is just, it's an interesting take when it comes to the fact that he's not using the correct word. Being 6'9" or 7'3" is not talent. If you talk about no one can drive down the lane like LeBron James, that's fair. If you say no one could shoot, no one has the generational talent of Kareem's skyhook. No one can mimic that skyhook with the same, same efficiency as Kareem.
He didn't put Kareem on the list.
I would, but like something like that would be talent. No one could shoot with the volume and the efficiency of Steph Curry from three. That would make sense. But to say that a guy can't be a generational talent because he's 6'2", 185, and you're comparing him to Magic Johnson, who's 6'9" and is a point guard with a vision, LeBron James. He plays every position. He's 6'9" and has more assists than Magic. Magic just has more rings, by I think 1. So, I mean, how technical you want to get on this? Because
I just think that I don't think he put
correct. No one is as dominant. No one is or could be maybe as dominant as Shaq was in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I'll give him that. He's 350 pounds at 7'1".
No, I think Shaq's a generational talent, but it's not just because of his physical skills.
Absolutely.
It's his head too. It's his mental part of it. That plays a big role, and there are a lot of players that don't have all the physical traits that Gilbert Arenas is outlining here, and I think they're generational talents. I would put Tom Brady in that category, and I would put Steph Curry in that category for sure. Larry Bird as well. Larry Bird would say he wasn't a physical specimen.
No.
But he was a generational talent.
Michael Jordan, who can jump high and fly as long as Michael Jordan
He definitely had
can.
the physical skills.
Absolutely. But if we're talking about pure talent, he's been retired for 20 years. He's still in the greatest of all time conversation. And there are a lot of people who strongly believe that Jordan is still the greatest of all time. Even though LeBron's breaking every record known to man.
I'm one of those.
You're one of them, yes.
Yeah. Six rings, man.
6 rings. He went 6-0, 2 3-peats. And if we're being honest, could he have gone from when that first 3-peat started to the last dance? Could he have won every single finals? It would have been extremely difficult. But just look at the road. He never made it to a Game 7. In the NBA fight, he never made it to a Game 7.
No.
So I think that this is just, he's using the wrong word here. Because he's bringing in legitimate talent with size. Size is not a part of talent. And on top of that, calling Curry average talent, that kind of just kills your argument. Because you could say Muggsy Bogues would have been...
How can somebody be an average talent when they've broken the record for three-point shots in the three-pointers made in the NBA?
Not only that, change the way the game is played. And also, if we're using that logic, Muggsy Bogues should be on this list. A 5'3" starting point guard. That has to show you something.
Yeah.
You're talking about the size, 6'9", and Shaq's body and all that. Victor Wembanyama. Muggsy Bogues. I think it's a
little early to call Wemby a generational talent, I think. He's only played 1 year in the NBA.
But he played extremely well in that first year. Now, it could all fall apart. Injuries, just poor play, whatnot.
I also think a generational talent is somebody who shows they can do it over an extended period of time.
Correct. Consistency.
Yeah, consistency over a career.
Yes.
That's when you determine whether someone's generational and whether they had an impact on how the game is played.
If we're doing cross sports as well, Mahomes is a part of that list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aaron Judge is a part of that list. Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout. Those are generational talents. It's not that they come once every 20 years, because in that case, I mean, Magic Johnson, yeah, he came. Shaq,
Ted Williams. Ted Williams. How about Babe Ruth? Did he look like a physical specimen? Man, the guy had a big gut on him.
Well, I'll also say it's not. It hasn't hit the 20-year period.
700 home runs.
If we're using that logic, also, it hasn't been 20 years since LeBron came into the NBA and Wemby showed up. It's been about, I think, 17.
Yeah.
Was he got drafted? Actually, no. Yeah, no, it has been 20 years. He got drafted in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. I think LeBron was drafted in 2003. Same with
LeBron, I agree, is a generational talent, but he's not the only one that's happened in the last 20 years. Steph Curry is a generational talent.
100%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
There are more than I'm sure like Giannis could be as well.
I think you're right. I think Giannis is one you could put in that league.
Luka Doncic is a generational talent. The dude is dropping 33 points a game against the number 1 defense and embarrassing them. Dropped 33, then what? It was 36, I believe. Generational talent. How many game winners, how many soul crushers has he had? He was shooting threes from the logo in Game 5.
Yeah. I don't think Gilbert Arenas put much thought into this when he came up with this.
He's using the wrong word.
He's just shooting from his hip. He's shooting from his lip. He's shooting from his lip.
He's using the wrong word. It's not talent, because you can't incorporate height and size into being talented. Because unless you eat so much that you become extremely overweight and be 350 pounds, and there you could work on that. And I guess if you get titanium rods in your legs, you can go maybe 2 inches taller. But to be 7'3", that's not talent. That's just genetics.
Yeah.
Talent is something you work on, you perfect. Now, could you be predisposed to being athletic? Sure. But you have to work on your craft for it to be a talent.
You got to be smart. You got to have a...
That also is talent as well.
You got to have the IQ.
Absolutely.
It's a combination of things. It's not just physical traits.
I would 100% agree with that. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, C.J. Stroud said he would rather pick Eli Manning's career instead of Aaron Rodgers, as well as we make our 2024 NBA Finals picks. Are we picking the Celtics? Are you picking the Celtics and I'm picking the Mavs? We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with, where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, as well as Texans wide receiver Tank Dell, went on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, where Stroud was asked if he preferred to have Eli Manning's career or Aaron Rodgers, where Stroud quickly actually chose Eli Manning's career due to the fact that he has 2 Super Bowl rings. I want to know, do you agree with C.J. Stroud that it's smart to choose Eli Manning's career, or would you mold your game after Eli Manning's career or Aaron Rodgers's, as well as who do you think had the better career between Manning and Rodgers?
Well, Rodgers' career is still going.
Right.
So I think it's a little premature. He's on a team that has a chance to get to the Super Bowl this year. If he plays really well, they may get there. So then he might win another Super Bowl, and then he'll have 2, dog. So, and by the way, Stroud, you're playing Aaron Rodgers in the 7th game of the week 9 of the season. So you don't think he's going to be fired up after you said this? It's going to be real interesting to see that game. I'll be watching. I don't think that I do think that Aaron Rodgers is the better overall player in his career. He may only have 1 Super Bowl, but he does have one, and he has 4 MVPs. He has 103.6 passer rating, which ranks him number 1 in NFL history. He has the best TD to interception ratio, 475 to 105. He's second in postseason passing TDs with 45, and he's 4th in yards with almost 6,000. So that speaks to me as somebody who has done okay. Now, he maybe have only gotten to 1 Super Bowl, but he has been in the playoffs a lot. His playoff record isn't that great. Some of it isn't all his fault. It is a game sport here. It's a team sport in football. So, some bad luck happened along the way. He's still not done. He could wind up with 2 Super Bowl rings, and then what would you say?
That is a good point. I think he's looking at the rings, right? The 2 Super Bowl rings. However, yes, Eli Manning does have 2 Super Bowl rings as well as 2 Super Bowl MVPs. But I think I'm not saying it's 50-50, but there is enough of a question mark around Eli Manning's entire career on whether or not he will be in the Hall of Fame. I think there's a lot of question of whether or not he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But there's still some question of whether or not he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Aaron Rodgers, however, does have 1 Super Bowl, does have 1 Super Bowl MVP. He's 7-9 since that Super Bowl in the playoffs. And yet everybody considers him a first ballot Hall of Famer, no questions asked. In career-wise, these are the career numbers. Rodgers blows him out of the water. Eli Manning's interceptions are the most by any quarterback since 2000. He has a 500 regular season record. Now, I am the committee of quarterbacks. Wins are not necessarily a quarterback stat, but they should not be excluded whatsoever. Because as you point out consistently, the quarterback holds the ball on every play. Now, if we include Super Bowls, isn't that another game won? Isn't that another game that's won? And if we add context to it, why don't we? Is the Super Bowl 53 against the Rams, Super Bowl 53, where the Patriots won 13-3. I don't think anybody would say that Edelman necessarily deserved it because that was a defensive Super Bowl. The defense deserved to be the MVPs of those games. However, you can't give it to a whole defense. I think if we're being honest, Brady's last Super Bowl, his very, very last Super Bowl when he was with Tampa, that was a defensive Super Bowl. Shut down Mahomes. Mahomes had no offensive line. The Bucs dominated in the trenches and were able to get to Mahomes and disrupt him. He didn't even score a touchdown. but they gave it to Brady because he played good enough to get the credit for Super Bowl MVP. And that's the same exact thing with Eli Manning. Eli Manning nearly threw Super Bowl 42 away in the hands of Asante Samuel, who mistimed his jump and could not hold on to an interception the play before David Tyree's incredible catch. But Eli Manning does not deserve to win Super Bowl MVP whatsoever. It should have been the New York Giants defense, because of the fact the Giants defense held the undefeated at the time New England Patriots, who were averaging nearly 33 points a game, to 14? 33 to 14. Kind of like the Patriots did in Super Bowl 53, where they held the 33-point-a-game Rams to only 3 points. But once again, you can't give it to a whole defense. Eli Manning was enough of a game manager in order to be, noble enough to win Super Bowl MVP. But I think if we're looking at the careers, I'll even be fair. Let's do career accolades. Throw the stats away. Throw them away entirely. Let's just do the career accolades. Yes, Manning has 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 Super Bowl appearances. But the MVPs, Eli Manning didn't get a single vote. Nor did Eli Manning ever get a single vote for All-Pro as well. Pro Bowls, 2 of them, I believe, where he was a substitute, so didn't even get picked to be in the Pro Bowl in the first place. So 2 out of the 4, you could be like, kind of.
He never got voted into the Pro Bowl.
Well, no, he got 4 Pro Bowls. Yeah, didn't get a single vote to be an All-Pro. That means he was not top.
He was a replacement player in the
Pro Bowl, correct,
Bowls.
Twice. But for All-Pros, he was never a top 3 quarterback in his own conference, let alone the entirety of the NFL, in his own conference. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers has 5 All-Pros, 4 MVPs.
The fact that his record in his career is just 500.
500.
That's
I'm not saying wins are a definite quarterback stat, but you can't throw him out.
His last couple of years, man, he lost it. He was not as good as he was previously, and even then, during the regular season, you could say he was pretty average most of the time.
He was 100% average. I'll also say this, though. What's crazy is that, yes, I'll bring up the stats one more time. So, yeah, Eli Manning has all those stats, right? And Rodgers has all those stats. The interceptions are about 140 more, and he has 140 less touchdowns. And Manning has played 5 more games. 5 more games.
Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers is still playing.
The passer rating is abysmal. 84.1 for a career.
You don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to try to get us another Super Bowl, man?
Yeah, and you got to asterisk to all of those stats because they can go up or they can go down.
I bet you he plays more than this year, too. If they get, let's say they win the Super Bowl, maybe he considers retirement, but I doubt it. I bet he's going to continue playing. He likes to play football, and he's basically said that now, that he's going to continue playing. We'll see how good he can be. I mean, he did tear his Achilles tendon. That's a pretty serious injury, and he is 40 years old.
Right.
But we've seen other 40-year-old quarterbacks win the Super Bowl multiple times.
Multiple times. Tom Brady, yeah. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is Tom Brady. I don't think he'll ever be Tom Brady. Nor does he deserve to be in the GOAT conversation, which we talked about on Friday. However,
I do think he's ahead of Eli Manning, though.
I think no one would argue with that. If you're doing your top 10 quarterbacks,
well, C.J. Stroud would.
Well, C.J. Stroud would put him apparently number 1 if you're comparing the 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
just because he has 2 rings. So what? You're saying that Eli Manning is like, or you basically, if we're going according to that, you put Aaron Rodgers on the same level as Trent Dilfer, as well as like Nick Foles, Joe Flacco. Just because you're talking about the rings. Aaron Rodgers is significantly better than all those quarterbacks. And I'll reiterate this. Aaron Rodgers is a surefire Hall of Famer. No one questions it.
No question. First ballot.
And that's and that's including the fact he only has 1 Super Bowl appearance, 1 Super Bowl win, 1 Super Bowl MVP. Manning with 2 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl wins is a question to be a Hall of Famer entirely. And I think a lot of people are massively questioning whether or not he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So take a look at that for a second.
Yeah, I think it'll be close on Eli Manning. I think he'll get in because he played in New York. And I think that the sports writers in New York are all going to vote for him, and there's quite a few of them.
I would agree with that. My expectation, and we're actually going to have a discussion. I've had this discussion for the past 5 years since Manning retired up until now. We're going to actually do a topic later on, future plans, when it gets into the NFL season and the finalists come out for Hall of Fame, because this year is Eli Manning's Hall of Fame first ballot year. So we'll have a topic later on, a couple months from now, talking about it. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a nice long discussion.
I think that, how many Super Bowls would Tom Brady have if the Manning brothers weren't played in the NFL?
We went over this. We said, I think, 10, 11 maybe?
At least.
Yeah.
Right? He would have had 3 more at least.
Yeah.
Because he would have beaten Eli twice. Well, he would have beaten the Giants or whoever they played twice more, and they would have probably Manning knocked him out of it once, too.
2015, you think the Patriots would have beaten Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So those Manning guys, I don't dislike them, actually. I don't dislike the Manning brothers.
It's hard to dislike them.
Peyton Manning. He's got a good sense of humor. He's made quite a career for himself on TV and broadcasting.
Omaha Productions. He got Bill Belichick in that.
Bill Belichick's working with him. That's a good choice. I like that. So I don't dislike those guys, but in this particular comparison and this particular comment by C.J. Stroud, I disagree.
I would agree with you on that one. All right, let's get into our final topic of today's show. So the Mavericks are making their first NBA Finals appearance since the 2010-2011 season, where they took down the Miami Heat and were awarded their first championship title in their franchise's history. However, the Celtics are making their second Finals appearance in 3 years. They lost to Golden State in 2021-2022 in 6 games, where Stephen Curry got his first NBA Finals MVP. So the moment's now. This is Thursday, 8:30 on ABC. Game 1 begins, where actually, not only does Kyrie make his postseason return, Kristaps Porzingis makes his with the Dallas Mavericks. So there's a lot going on, a lot of reunionship here. I want to know who will be crowned as the 2024 NBA champions, the Boston Celtics or the Dallas Mavericks?
I'm picking the Boston Celtics. I think it might go 7 games. And I think it will be very exciting. I think the Dallas Mavericks are the best competition that the Celtics have faced in this playoff run. They've actually gotten kind of lucky in this playoff run. They played Miami, no Jimmy Butler. They played the
Pacers.
The Pacers with Halliburton hurt, and they played the Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell hurt. So that helped them a lot along the way, and they've got a sterling playoff record. They only lost 2 games so far in the playoffs, but I do think that this is a step up for them in terms of competition, and I do think it will be tough. And I think that there's a number of factors that you look at in this series, Doncic and Irving, and how they attack Horford and Porzingis down in the paint. They're definitely quicker. Doncic being a pretty big guy as well. I think that could be interesting to watch. I think the Celtics will create mismatches on Irving. He's going to be one of the smaller guys out there. It'd be fun to see Drew Holiday post up Kyrie Irving. That might be fun to watch. I think that the Celtics will drive directly at Luka Doncic because he is not a prototypical point guard in any stretch, right? You look at him, he doesn't look like a point guard. He doesn't look like he's that quick out there either. But he is. He's kind of deceiving. But I do think the Celtics will go right at him, and I think they'll have some success with that. I don't think the Dallas has any really two-way stars. The Doncic and Irving are not great defensive players, whereas you have Drew Holiday and
Derek White.
Derek White, yeah, they both made second team all defensive team. I think that's something that flies under the radar a little bit, but very important to the Celtics. I think that the Celtics can make Luka work a little bit harder on defense, then that will help them, and he may not score quite as much. You look at the Celtics' way they're going to win here. I think they're going to have to make their threes. They were number 1 in average of 3-pointers per game was 16.5, 38.8%, and they made 14.6 a game generally for 36.8%. On the other hand, the Mavs, 14.7 a game shooting, 36.9% of their shots. They made 12.6 for 37.2. So the Celtics are ahead of them by about 6 points a game on those threes, two a game. That's important, I think. The Celtics, when they made 15 threes, 54-9. Under 15, 10-9. So they got to hit those threes. And that was one thing that kind of did them in, I think, last year against the Miami Heat, where they went cold from three. They were driving down the lane and trying to hit the layups or just dominate on the boards and in the paint. And they were turning the ball over way too much. They got to hit their three-pointers, and they got to be confident that they can do that. When they make 15 or more threes in the postseason, they're 7-0. So I think that's an important aspect of this. I think Brown and Tatum's efficiency is going to be important, and I think they'll be very efficient because look at the players that are going to be guarding them. Derek Jones, P.J. Washington, Josh Green. I think those guys are a step underneath Brown and Tatum in terms of star power and effectiveness and efficiency. So I think they'll have good luck. Brown and Tatum playing against those guys who will be defending them. I think the Missoula versus Kidd matchup is very interesting. They've both been quite creative in the playoffs, and I look for Holiday to be exploiting his defender, and because of his size, he's a sneaky big. And I think he'll use that to his advantage. So those are some of the matchups and some of the strategies and some of the insights that I have for this series, which I think will be won by the Celtics.
So we talked about all year, right? Ever since the Porzingis trade, we said Celtics are going to win the NBA Finals. They should win the NBA Finals. With the team that's currently constructed, with the record that they have, the best in the NBA. I think it's their fourth or fifth highest winning percentage in their entire franchise. They should be able to win the NBA Finals. I'm picking the Dallas Mavericks. I'm picking the Mavericks to win. Because I went against I picked them in round one to beat the Clippers. I picked against them against OKC. I picked against them against the Timberwolves. I'm not making the same mistake 3 times. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It ain't going to happen a third time. I picked the Celtics in every single series so far. I'm picking the Mavericks to win this time. And I think it's going to come down to, if the Celtics have a shot, it's going to be because Drew Holiday stepped it up big time and finally shut down Kyrie Irving and or Luka Doncic. But that hasn't been the case so far in their 2 matchups this season. In the 2 matchups, Drew Holiday allowed Irving to shoot nearly 50%, 4 of 9. While against Luka, he allowed Luka to shoot 62.5%, 5 of 8. So his defensive prowess, which he's primarily used for, it's a slight upgrade because offensively, I think he's a little bit better than Marcus Smart. But the Celtics, I assume we're looking at him as an upgrade to Marcus Smart, at least consistency-wise and overall better defensive point guard. But what I find fascinating is that in the big-time moments, especially in the NBA Finals, Jason Tatum, the number 1 player, or the should-be number 1 player on the Celtics, does not do very well. And also, just in these playoffs in general, Jason Tatum has not shot the 3 very well. From 3, he's shooting under 30%. Under 30%. 29%. Now, he does have the most points per game for the Celtics in the playoffs, and he does actually lead the entire team in rebounds per game as well as assists per game. But in these big-time moments and in the big-time games, Jason Tatum, and in the NBA Finals, Jason Tatum has come up relatively small. Meanwhile, what we've seen from the Dallas Mavericks so far is really the coming alive of 2 players, 2 big men. Daniel Gafford, who came up with a number of blocks. He averaged 2.6 blocks a game against the number 1 defensive team in the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves, in the Western Conference Finals. He blocked 3 shots and conceded 3 as well against Karl Anthony Towns. And I thought I picked the Timberwolves because I thought that the defensive player of the year, as well as Karl Anthony Towns, a relatively good defender, and I think a relatively good offensive player as well, would shut down Gafford and Lively. They didn't. Now, Lively's actually my number 2. Lively, I think, is going to step up big here. I really think he is. His defense is going to be good. But what's fascinating is he made history, NBA history on the offensive side when he went 16 of 16. Shot 100% from the floor. Now, it was, layups and dunks and stuff like that, relatively close shots. But if you include the second round as well, he's made 21 consecutive baskets. Efficiency. Very, very efficient. It's the longest streak of the play-by-play era in NBA postseason history, which started nearly 30 years ago, back in 1996-97. So, I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. The Luka Doncic, I think hands down. Maybe we talked about this on Friday. 1A, 1B. Him, Jokic, who should have been the MVP. I think a lot of people thought, Jokic is the MVP because of advanced stats and the tier 2, tier 3 stats. Luka Doncic, though, the number wise, it's just incredible. But in the playoffs, it's where it gets actually pretty incredible, because in the playoffs, Luka Doncic is scoring, and this is an insane number. He's averaging nearly 29 points a game, 9.6 rebounds, and 8.8 assists. And what's even crazier, though, is against the number one defensive team in the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves, he averaged 32, 9, and 8 with 2.2 steals. Now, going into last season when they acquired Kyrie, their defense dropped off. Luka, lo and behold, he's focusing more on defense. He's averaging 2.2 steals, far and above more than anyone else on the Dallas Mavericks in that series, as well as Kyrie Irving is really matching him kind of point for point, 27 points against the Timberwolves in the 5-game series. But against the Boston Celtics, and this is where maybe Luka needs to step up even more, against the Boston Celtics, Kyrie has found a little bit of trouble. And we showed this earlier in the show. He's 0 for 10 since 2022, since he stomped on the logo and flipped the bird off to the Celtics. 20.8 points a game, 4.7 assists, 4.9 rebounds, 42% from the floor, sub 30% three-point percentage, and a net plus-minus of minus 49. But if you total it up, when Kyrie Irving is on the floor, his team, so the Brooklyn Nets as well as the Dallas Mavericks, get outscored by 87 points. That's with him on the court. They get outscored by 87. So, I think that's really if you shut down Kyrie, that's the way that the Dallas Mavericks are going to falter. But I just think, who is going to stop? Be honest with me. Who's going to stop Luka? Jason Tatum? Drew Holiday? Derek White?
My thought is they're not going to stop Luka, okay? But one guy can't beat the Celtics. It's got to be the whole team. The Celtics are a deeper team.
That's true.
They've tried hard to have a deeper rotation this year, and I think that's worked well for them. I don't think their players get as tired. I think the Mavs are going to have to play more minutes than the Mavs starters are going to have to play more minutes than the Celtics starters. I think that's a factor. I think the off the bench. Now it will look like Porzingis will be the starter now. Al Horford will come off the bench, or vice versa. Having Porzingis back in there, that is a big thing. If he can play effectively, I just don't see how the Mavs can beat the Celtics.
I think also we have to look at some underrated players as well. P.J. Washington has made more threes than Jason Tatum in these playoffs so far. As well as Luka also has a little bit of motivation. Now, I'm sure he's not focusing on this, but Luka's playing with a little bit of motivation because he's trying to become the 6th player in NBA history to lead the league in scoring as well as win the title in the same season. First player since Shaq in 2000. So there's a lot, and also Luka has to prove that y'all screwed up. I should have been the MVP of the league.
Yeah.
Not Doncic, not Shea, who beat me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Shea beat me in MVP voting.
I think that Doncic is a generational talent, Nate. Okay? I'll say that right now. I agree he's a generational talent.
Taking a shot at Gilbert
Arenas. But it
Arenas.
takes more than one player to beat a team as good as the Celtics. And Kyrie Irving, I'm going to have a very hard time playing against Boston, particularly in Boston. He'll get some points, but he's not the biggest guy out there. They're going to create mismatches with him. They have Drew Holiday up against him, a much bigger player, a much better defensive player. I think defense is a factor in this series, and the Dallas Mavericks defense is not rated anywhere near as high as the Celtics. And if Porzingis can be back in there and be effective, I just don't see how the Mavs can beat them. They don't have the depth. They don't have the size when you have Horford and Porzingis back. And you talk about P.J. Washington hitting more threes than
Made
Jason
more threes
Tatum.
than Jason Tatum in the
Okay,
playoffs.
but how about the rebounds and the assists? Huh? Jason Tatum almost averaging a triple-double here. I think that those factors come into play too. An assist is like scoring. You can count that as points. Add his points and the assists together, man. The guy's playing really well. Can he do it when it's on the line here? It's something he has to really to prove, I think. But the Celtics, I think they learned a lot when they lost to the Warriors a couple of years ago. They made it back. They've learned a lot. They have a deeper team. They have a team that is more experienced now, and I think they're going to do it.
Well, I'll also say this. They should have learned because currently, going into the finals, Tatum has a third. He has a third of the turnovers he had that other finals run. Where he
so
had
they've definitely been better. Now, have they played talent as tough as the Dallas Mavericks played along the way to get to the finals? I don't think so.
No.
And that's a little bit of a question mark.
That has to be a factor as well because you didn't play a series with the team's best player. You didn't play the entire series with that team's best player on the court all the time. Tyrese Halliburton got hurt and missed 2 games. Mitchell missed 2 games. Jimmy Butler was out the entire series. Now, even if, let's do the other side of this, Giannis would have been hurt. Dame was also playing hurt. The Knicks were also banged up brutally. So no matter which way you spin it, the Magic maybe, if the Magic upset the Cavs, but still, even if you take the other losers and put them in against the Celtics, they would have also been banged up and hurt. There was no healthy route that the Celtics could have had, winners or losers, outside of that first round. Even in that first round, you played the Heat, who lost Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. Well, I think there's more pressure on the Celtics in this series.
There has to be.
Because if they don't win it, the season is going to be viewed as a failure by many people.
And especially if
because
Jason
they did
Tatum
win,
plays poorly, it's going to be everybody's going to be ripping Tatum.
Yeah. Well, they won 62 games in the regular season. They didn't even try the last
64.
64, and they hardly tried in the last month of the season because they had it all locked up.
Right.
They had the subs out there at the end of the game when the games are close. So it's theirs to lose, I think, and they can't let the pressure get to them. There is more pressure on them, but they do have the home court advantage. They got to win that. They got to win those games at home, and they've been a little spotty at home during the playoffs in the last couple of years. A little better than a 500 record.
A game or two over 500.
Yeah,
right.
It's been better in the last series. They didn't lose at home, so.
Well, they swept. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they swept. So, I'm hoping they win, Nate. I really hoping they win. It's been a long time waiting for a championship for Boston, and I've been a fan going back to Bill Russell. So,
you
I'm
just dated
counting
yourself right there.
Yeah, well, I can date myself by being on the screen here.
Fair enough. All right. I think that does wrap it up. So, okay. So you have Celtics and how many?
I think it could go 7, and that will be a nerve-wracking game 7, and then that could be really close. It could go 7. We'll see. I hope if the Mavs have an injury or something, that could be a big deal because they aren't as deep as the Celtics, and the Celtics have to stay healthy too. And can Porzingis play?
Right.
I think that's a key factor here. Having him out there being effective. Look at all the stats that he had for the Celtics this year. He was number 1 in many categories. So it's important to have him out there. He should be well rested. Yeah. He's been played since game 2 of the first round, right? Or game 4 of the first round when he got hurt.
Might have been game 3.
I think it was game 4 he got hurt.
Game 3 or game 4. Yeah. I'll take Mavericks in 6. Mavericks in 6.
I don't think so, Nate.
Mavericks have been great on the road so far in these playoffs. Yeah. I'm taking Mavericks in 6.
I think they're playing against the tougher both teams are playing against the toughest competition. That's the way it should be.
Really?
This is the finals.
You think the Timberwolves will give them more hell or gave them more hell than the Celtics will?
Well, they beat the Timberwolves. I don't think they'll beat the
Celtics.
Celtics.
Beat them in 5 games, though. Yeah. Beat them in 5 games.
Yeah, but the Timberwolves,
they're a young team. I'll give you that.
They made a lot of mistakes.
Inexperienced team.
They made a lot of mistakes. Edwards, he started out like a house of fire, man. When he got to the conference championship there, he was had some mental mistakes there.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. All right, that does wrap it up. Our NBA Finals picks are in. You'll see this clip if you watch it probably Wednesday, or I guess tomorrow. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday where we recap Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. That will be right here, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.